Hello, and welcome to this Quarsh Human Capital Q&A. My name is Jason Collings. I'm your host for this session. I'm one of the founders and directors of Quarsh. I'm a former FTSE chief exec and chairman, and I now support organizations to get the best people and get the best out of them, whether it's finding them new executives or providing mentoring to their leadership teams. We got a selection of questions that have been sent to us, so thank you for those. So I'm going to get straight into it. The first question that we had, and it's a really good one, is what development resources are there? What can you do to help your managers and your executives to develop? And essentially, there are three types of development support that you can give to your execs, or as an exec, you can gain. And they are quite simply training, coaching, and mentoring. And these often cause some confusion. They're often used interchangeably, and they really shouldn't be because they are quite distinct. The easiest to describe is training. Training is essentially classroom learning. It's the acquisition of knowledge and skills and competencies by teaching, whether it's vocational or practical skills or knowledge. It's usually done on a one-to-group environment. It can even be done on your own just by reading a book, for instance, or watching a YouTube video. But often it's provided by a teacher or a tutor. Coaching is the next level, if you like, and that's about improving your performance by turning the things that you do into learning situations. So somebody who is coaching you will guide you by saying, I see what you did there, but maybe you want to try this. Coaching is often vocational. It's involved in the job that you're doing, and it's often done by your manager, your leader, your boss, or somebody who's senior within the team. Mentoring is the third of these, and this is one that's pretty close to my heart. I do quite a lot of it with people. And mentoring focuses on long-term strategic career development by and large. It doesn't mean it can't deal with immediate issues. Often it does. But the goal of it is to improve someone's capability over the long term, working with the mentee's own goals to achieve their full potential. A lot of it is asking them, what is it you want to know? Where is it you want to improve? And that brings us very much to the second question that we have today, which is, what areas of development should be offered and covered? What are you trying to do? Mentoring, as the one that I'm going to focus on here, covers three approaches. And this is how I will often engage with it when I'm working with somebody I'm mentoring. I ask the questions in this order. What's bothering you now? If there's nothing bothering you now, what is it you want to work on? What is it you want to develop? What skills do you feel you should have to do your job right now better? And if there's nothing that's immediately coming to mind, what's your plan? Where is it you want to go next? What's your long-term goal? And so mentoring should be structured around those approaches. Training is giving you a specific skill set, whatever it is, whether it's learning to program, learning to drive a car, whatever. Coaching is dealing with an issue that has been seen and immediately needs address, or is most beneficially done by an immediate address. Mentoring is more long-term, it's more developmental. So it covers those 3 points. What's on your mind now? What's a problem? What do you want to develop to get better? And what's your long-term plan? And in every case, the mentor will work with the mentee to try and solve that issue. The third question that we've been asked is, what is the difference between management and executive levels? In terms of skill set, what's needed, or anything else? And it's a really good question because these are really, really interchangeable. Somebody can be called a manager in one organization, they can swap organizations, have been a GM in one company, go into another company and be an MD, or be a CEO. And actually, the job may be identical, but there is a difference. It may be an ephemeral difference that doesn't mean a lot, but it is there and it's worth understanding. And the difference is that management is about process, whereas leadership is about people. You have to lead people. You can't lead a process, you manage a process. Now, it doesn't mean that people don't get managed, but it's the role that the people take within the process. So if it's about stuff, if it's about mechanical things, if it's about objects, if it's about spreadsheets, it's usually management. If it's about people, engagement, that's leadership. And an executive is more on the leadership end of things than a manager. Now, as I said, the terms are often interchangeable. A general manager may look at what they do in the day and go, actually, I do very little on the management side. I'm doing a lot on the leadership side. Frankly, that just means that the job title probably isn't quite right. But yeah, I wouldn't let that worry you. If you're looking at what a manager should be doing, they are, as a rule, more tactical. Regardless of their job title, they're going to be involved in directing the doers, the people doing the job, whatever it is, programming, working on the production line, being in the military or the police, it doesn't matter. But a manager is directing and is pretty hands-on with the doers, or they're actually doing the job themselves to some extent, maybe showing others how to do it, but they are very much in contact with the doing of the job. Executives, whether they're D-level directors or C-level, CEO, COO, CFO, and so on, their job is to lead and strategize. They shouldn't be doing. If you're a C-level officer or a senior director in a significant sized organization and you're doing things, if you're, whether it's putting together spreadsheets or working on the line or taking out deliveries, you're doing the wrong job. That's not really what you're being paid to do. You should be delegating those jobs to other people. Bear that one in mind because we're going to come back to that one. That's really important. Leaders, executives should be leading and strategizing. They shouldn't really be doing. That should be something that they delegate to someone else because it's not the best use of their time. So that brings us to the fourth question that we've been asked, which is, what's the biggest pitfall for a new exec? If you've just been promoted into an executive role, director level, chief exec level, or even senior manager of some sort, what is the biggest thing to watch out for? And that goes back to that last point. It's that you do too much. And I don't mean necessarily the hours, although there is a factor there, but that you're hands-on. You probably got promoted into a senior level, particularly if this is your first step into management and leadership. You got promoted because you were good at doing something, whether you're a good salesman or a good worker in the production line or a good programmer or anything. You all got promoted because you're good at doing. It will be your instinct to do the thing you're good at, the thing that got you promoted. But the fact is, that's no longer your job. You're there to direct others in how to do things better, not to do it yourself. You should be focusing your limited time. And I said we'd come back to the question of time, and this is where I'm going to talk about it a little. You have a limited amount of time, and you should be using it where it is most valuable. Look at what it is that you bring to the table that is most valuable to the organization. They're paying your salary. They are the ones that want the best return. And the best return that you can give is from using your time most productively. So what is it you can do that you do substantively better than anybody else, or only you can do? And it shouldn't be something that's hands-on, really. That should be delegated to someone else. That nicely brings us to question 5. Thank you, whoever asked this one. This is a great one. What are the biggest lessons of the first 6 months in an exec role? What are the big headliners? So I've really thought about this and I've narrowed it down to 5 top tips. They're in no particular order. If you're new into an exec role, whether it's your first exec role or you've done it a dozen times, these are the big pitfalls. These are the things that you can trip up on. It's not your old job plus supervision. This is particularly the case if this is a first managerial or exec role. The new role is not just what you used to do plus some supervising. It's not. You no longer do that old job. That's someone else's job. Your job is that leading and managing of things. The second lesson is you can't do everything yourself. You have to delegate things. Decide how much time you have in a day. And I really, really do encourage you that it should only be 7.5, 8 hours, and half an hour plus of that is going to be answering the phone and checking emails. So 7 to 7.5 hours a day tops. If you're building more than that in a standard, you're heading for burnout. We do a lot of work with people in getting the optimal performance from their teams, getting focus. It's much better to look at techniques for improving focus and improving productivity that way than adding hours. All of the evidence has shown that just adding hours in reduces productivity in the long term. It's fine if you've got a push for a week, 2 weeks, something like that. Yes, you can get a productivity gain, but the drop off after that happens really fast and really hard. So don't just throw more time at it. You can't do everything. Focus on the things that only you can do or that you do substantively better. That's the key. The third point, big lessons for the first 6 months, are good communication and delegation. They are the most important skills to learn. Learn how to communicate. And by the way, top tip here, if I had to give one tip on communication, I teach courses on communication, but number one tip is verify. Tell somebody what you want and then ask them to tell you what you just said. About half of the information that we put out isn't heard. So say it and then verify. I said this, what did I just say? It's a really good tip. The other side of that, like I said, delegation, communication and delegation. You cannot be the person doing everything. Learn how to delegate. Again, a really, really important skill. Those are the two key skills to being a good leader, good exec. Don't add more time. Use the time more effectively. We've touched on that. I really can't emphasize it enough, so I've put it in there specifically. Do not add more time into your day. Just use your time most effectively. And when you run out of time, you put things down. You need time for yourself too. Otherwise, you won't refresh yourself and be efficient again the next day and the next day and the next day. Ask your boss what their expectations are and how you'll be measured before you start the job. And communicate up as well as down. You've got to communicate with whoever is in charge, whether it's a board, a chairman, a chief exec, whatever the management structure of the role that you're going into is. Make sure you know how you're going to be judged. Make sure you know what they are expecting, what your timelines are, how you're going to be measured, what good looks like. Don't wait until you're 6 months down the track. You'll almost certainly have done that classic thing of deviating by 1 degree and ending up miles off course. So just to recap those 5 points. Remember, it's not just your old job plus supervision. You can't do everything yourself. Good communication and delegation are the most important skills to learn. Don't just add in more time. Make sure you use your time most effectively, and make sure you ask your boss what their expectations are, how you'll be measured, and remember to communicate up. Question number 6, how do I get the best out of my team of execs? That's a really good one. Most of these questions have been for the executive. This one's for a chief exec or possibly even a chairman. Roles I've held, and they are challenging to get the best out of a team of execs. It's a bunch of individuals, all of whom probably have egos, probably have justification for having those egos. They're great at their job. So how do you get the best out of them? And to be honest, this is the same for any team. So what I'm going to say here, if you're leading any team, most of these will be relevant. Again, I've gone for 5 points. The first is look to align the culture. And this is true for whole organizations. Make sure that you hire people, you develop people, and you manage people according to your company culture and values. When you're looking at whether you bring somebody into a business, it's not just about their skills, how good they are, their track record. Are they aligned to your values and the culture that you want in the organization? Develop them, reward them for success that aligns with that culture and values. Manage them. Yeah, I'm going to give you this task to do, and this is the reason why, because it aligns with our values. So align your culture. By doing that, you're all heading in the same direction, which is the direction you want the company to go in, presumably, because you've defined the culture and the values of the organization to begin with. So that's really important. Make sure you lead and you push your executive team or any team in your organization by align with the culture and the values. The second is ensure you know what motivates your team as individuals. We all are motivated by different things. These are what psychologists will call emotional drivers. Find out what your people's emotional drivers are. This means you're going to have to talk to them. You're going to have a chat. You're going to have to take them aside. How's life? What is it that gets you up in the morning? What is it that keeps you up at night? You know, all of these things will start to paint a picture of what somebody's emotional drivers, their motivations are. And it's going to be much, much more complicated than the paycheck. We do a survey multiple times a year with different organizations, hundreds in total over the years. And out of the 14 different motivators that we tend to look at, money is usually about number 9, number 10. Yeah, there are times where it's up higher, and there are also industries where it's higher. But on average, it's usually around number 9, number 10. If you're looking to motivate your team just by paying them well, yeah, they'll turn up, but they won't put in the extra mile. That's about other things. And everybody's going to be an individual. You've got to find out what it is. And then, referring back to the first point, if it's at odds with your company culture, they're probably not the right person for the organization. The third point, make sure that everybody in the team, and this goes for whether it's an exec team or lower down, but it's absolutely vital in an exec team, knows their responsibilities, their authority, and their resources. What is it you want them to do? How are you going to measure them? Referring back to that previous point we made in the previous question. What is their authority? What can they do? What's their sign off? And what resources have they got available to get it done? And when I talk about responsibilities, that's what your expectations, what does good look like? What's the timeline? How are you going to keep track of them? What reports do you want? This is all critical to getting the best out of a leadership team or any team. The fourth point, really, really important. I said these weren't in any order. They're really not. But if I was going to have an order, this might be number one. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Keep communicating. Communicate well to begin with. Keep touching base and understand when there are issues appearing, what they are, when they're appearing, and help to support them. And that gets us nicely to the fifth one, which is hugely important. It really, really is. And it's often overlooked. And it's really the heart of what we're talking about here today. Give people the opportunity to develop. How do you get your exec team or any team to buy in? You help them to develop. Everybody wants to be better, whether or not they're at the beginning of their career or right at the end of their career. Even if they're on the verge of retirement, they still want to learn. They still want to be the best that they can be. They may not be looking for a promotion, but they're looking to know how to do a new thing or how to be a little bit better. So give people that opportunity to develop. Within an organization, lower down the value chain, you're going to have people who you're giving training to, you're giving development opportunities that way, you're coaching them maybe within the teams. At a senior level, that's much harder to do. If you're a COO, you really only have the CEO or maybe the chairman to look to, and their experience is probably going to look pretty similar to yours if they're in the same industry and obviously ultimately in the same company. So external mentoring is incredibly valuable. Hey, I would say that I offer external mentoring, but the feedback that we've had over the years has been absolutely clear and superb that mentoring makes the biggest difference, not only to people's careers, their productivity, their effectiveness, but to their lives in general. So give them a mentor, give them the opportunity to deal with issues as they come up by getting a third party involved. Those are my 5 points. Align to the culture, ensure you know what motivates your team, make sure that they know their responsibilities, their authority, and their resources, communicate and develop them at an executive level, at least, giving them mentoring opportunity. The next question number 7, how to integrate with your peers as a new exec. And I thought about this one. I ended up dividing it into 2 parts. So, yeah, how do you integrate with your peers as a new exec? One part of that suggests to me that newly promoted managers and execs find the internal dynamic pretty challenging. Now, here I'm talking about integrating with the team that you are now managing. If you're a new exec, and often this is the issue because somebody's been promoted. They've been promoted to team leader, to manager, to senior exec, and they're no longer in the team. They are now the leader of the team. And that's a challenge. And a lot of people really struggle with that. So I'm going to tackle that one first of all. If you've been one of the team, you have to remember you're no longer. I know that's a change, but you're not. Your job is to manage and lead the team. At the end of the day, you're being paid to work, and work is not a social club. You're not there to socialize. You're not there to make friends. It's great if you do, don't get me wrong. I've got lots of people who are friends who I work with, but that's not the primary relationship. The primary relationship is as co-workers. The friendship is wonderful, but it is incidental, and it has to be. Otherwise, the dynamic of working there doesn't work. So if you are promoted into a position of responsibility and leadership out of a team where you have friends, that's going to be awkward, but you have to address that. And my recommendation there is very clear. Take them aside, probably outside of work. Don't make it a work dynamic. Go to the pub, go for lunch, whatever it is, and say, look, I'm really sorry that this is changing things, but it is. And I'm going to have to tell you stuff that you may not want to hear, but I want you to understand that this is my job. And I hope that we can continue to be friends nonetheless. Now, I've had to do this on many occasions. It's not easy, not going to pretend it is, but it is important. It is essential to do it. I hope that answers part of that question. But when I was thinking about how to answer this question of how to integrate with your peers as a new exec, the other side of that, obviously, is integrating with the existing exec team if you're new into an organization. And so I'm also going to answer that question because that's significantly different. I've got 3 key tips here. If you're coming into an organization, whether you've been promoted up from within or you've come in from the outside, first of all, don't try to do too much too soon. Often somebody comes in, they feel, oh my God, I've got a target on my back. They've got huge expectations. I'm the new sales director. I've got to go and sell 5,000 things by tomorrow. Don't try and do too much too soon. Understand the ground. Look at how things are done. Look at what everybody is focused upon, what people are good at. You don't need to take forever to do it, but don't try and run before you can walk. This isn't any reflection on you. It's just good sense. And if somebody says, well, why aren't you doing anything? Well, I question how good they are at managing you. You can explain. I'm getting to understand how things work here. I'm getting the lie of the land. Now, I'm not saying you have to take 6 months to do it, but a few weeks is probably a sensible idea, unless the company is in an absolutely dire strait. And one of the roles I used to have was as what you might call a company doctor, going into distressed companies and turning them around. That's a very different dynamic. You've got a very short time to make an impact. Unless you're in that situation, though, take a little time. Otherwise, you're going to do more damage than good by trying to run before you can walk. See how the dynamic works within that executive team. If you're integrating into that team, who are the pushy ones? Who are the quiet ones? Who've got all the good ideas? Who maybe not so much? Who are the ones that maybe aren't listened to, but maybe have something really good to give? If it's a successful executive team, they're all going to have something useful. Otherwise, why are they there? If there are problems within the executive team, where's the problem? Often, it might be the person who is the most vociferous and outgoing because they're dominating things with their own ideas. And actually, the benefit of an executive team is it's a team. It's not a one-man show or one-woman show. The third point then is ask advice. Go to the other people in the team, go to the other execs. They will respect you for respecting them. Respect breeds respect. Go and say, hey, I'm new to this, or I'm new to this company. What would you do? You don't have to take their advice. Go, yeah, just be polite and go, okay, that's interesting. Thank you for that. I may or may not do that, but I really appreciate your thoughts on it. Lots of people who come into this, particularly guys who've come up through quite aggressive environments, whether it's finance or sales or something like that, they see it as weakness to ask advice or to get other people's opinions. It's not. It's just good sense. If somebody else has been there longer, or has been in the role longer, or has been in a parallel comparable role longer, why wouldn't you ask what they would do, their advice, their opinion, what they think? You don't have to follow their advice, but it shows respect to ask. And who knows, they may have a great idea. It gets back to this mentoring thing of drawing information from as many sources as possible. And that gets us to the last point. What is it that a mentor can give an executive? And I'm going to focus that specifically on new executives, but it's for any executive, really. There are chief execs and other senior C-level officers who I work with and mentor, who have been in the game for a very long time, but they still get benefit from mentoring. Mentoring basically does a number of different things. It provides a clear third-party perspective. It's a different point of view. It's a different approach. It gives the person who's receiving it, the mentee, if you like, a different way of looking at the issue that they're currently addressing that they may not have thought of, because the individual doesn't come from the same company. They don't necessarily even come from the same industry, but they've been around the block. They've seen a lot of different things. That's the essential. If you want a good mentor, find somebody who's done a lot of different things, has had some interesting job titles, has done some interesting stuff, ideally in different countries or different types of companies. They will bring lots of diversity of ideas to the table. The second thing that I think is that mentoring can do is bring experience you just don't have. Again, they've been out there, they've done different things. It can be breadth. It can be they've worked in 6 or 16 different companies, or it can be depth. They've just done the job longer than you have. So there's that experience that a mentor brings to your capabilities. You may be coming in with a very shallow pool of experience, but you can lean on them, and that's invaluable, I believe. The third point is they can act as a sounding board outside the management structure. And that's incredibly important. Leadership can be a very, very lonely place to be, particularly if you're a chairman or chief exec. Who do you go to when you're uncertain and you've got doubts and you don't know what's going on? A mentor. A mentor is outside of the management structure. They're outside of the chain of command. They're not going to go, oh, you know what so-and-so said. They are there to help you succeed, which is the fourth point. A good mentor has no other agenda than to help you to succeed. So, the fundamental question, what can a mentor give to an exec, particularly a new exec? The ability to succeed. They can spot the issues you may not spot because of their experience. They can work through problems because they've seen those problems before or something like it, or at least it's a second pair of eyes and a second brain looking at the issues that you're facing. Thanks very much for having a look and hearing what we have to say. We are Quarsh, and we are delighted to support you in whatever your human capital needs are. Thanks very much indeed, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.